In 1937, I was 21 years old and wrote a master's thesis that no one asked for. Nobody ordered that from me. No teacher, said Claude, solve this problem. I simply saw something that no one was seeing. I saw that Boolean algebra, that abstract system of true and false invented by George Bull almost a century earlier, could be used to design electrical circuits. That on and off switches were the same thing as ones and zeros. That mathematical logic and electrical engineering were, at heart, the same discipline. It seemed obvious to me. It wasn't obvious to anyone else. And from that dissertation was born the basis of all digital computing that exists today. Every computer, every cell phone, every chip, every processor, every digital device on the planet operates on the principles I established in those pages. I was 21 years old, and without knowing it, I designed the future. But that was just the beginning. What if I told you that in 1948, 11 years later, I published another work that anticipated practically everything that defines the modern world, not just computers, but the internet, digital communication, data compression, video streaming, cryptography, social networks, smartphones, artificial intelligence, all. Not because I designed every one of these technologies, but because I discovered the fundamental laws upon which they would all be built. Laws that no one knew about, that no one suspected, that were hidden in mathematics, waiting for someone to reveal them. Let me tell you how I saw the future without realizing I was seeing it. In the 1940s, the world was analog, completely analog. Telephones transmitted voice as continuous electrical waves. Radios transmitted music as continuous electromagnetic waves. Televisions transmitted images as continuous signals. Everything was smooth, continuous, fluid. The idea of transforming voice, music, images into sequences of zeros and ones seemed absurd to most people. It felt like a step backwards. Why transform something continuous and rich into something discrete and fragmented? Why trade a gentle wave for a stepladder? It felt like you were throwing away information, destroying quality, degrading the signal. And in a way, they were right. Digitization is, by nature, an approximation. You lose something by turning continuous into discrete. But what I understood, and what almost no one understood at the time, is that what you gain is infinitely more valuable than what you lose. What you gain is control. Full control over information. When a message is analog, it is vulnerable. Every time you copy, amplify, transmit, store an analog signal, it degrades a little. The noise accumulates. Quality drops. There is no way to distinguish the original signal from the noise that was mixed with it. Each copy generation is worse than the last. Think cassette tapes. You record a song. Copy to another tape. Copy the copy. Each copy has more hiss, more distortion, less clarity. Within a few generations, the original music is unrecognizable. This is the curse of analog. Degradation is continuous, irreversible, and cumulative. But when the message is digital, everything changes. A bit is either 0 or 1. There is no half bit. There is no such thing as almost 0 or almost 1. It's one or the other. And this discrete, binary, absolute nature gives digital a superpower that analog will never have, the capacity for perfect regeneration. When a digital signal travels through a channel and experiences noise, the receiver does not have to guess the exact value of the signal. You just need to decide, is this closer to 0 or 1? If the noise is not too great, the decision is easy. And once taken, the bit is regenerated. Clean, perfect, identical to the original. Noise is eliminated. Not attenuated, deleted. The bit comes out the other side as clean as it came in. This means that a digital message can be copied an infinite number of times without degradation. It can travel thousands of kilometers, passing through dozens of repeaters, and arrive identical to the original. It can be stored for decades and handles as faithfully as the first day. The copy is perfect because the bit is absolute. And the bit is absolute because I defined it that way. Not as a continuous quantity that can take on any value, but as a binary choice, 0 or 1, yes or no, true or false. This definition, this decision to make the unit of information discrete and binary, is what made the digital world possible. And I went further. It was not enough to set the bit. I needed to prove that digital systems could be as good as analog systems, that discretization was not a fatal loss, that it was possible to represent any continuous signal with arbitrary fidelity using enough bits, and I proved it. The sampling theorem, which I and others like Harry Nyquist have worked on, shows that if you sample a continuous signal at a rate at least twice its maximum frequency, you can reconstruct it perfectly, without any loss. The original continuous wave can be fully recovered from the discrete samples. The stepladder can be transformed back into the gentle wave. No loss. This is extraordinary. It means that digital is not a degradation of analog. It is an equivalent representation. With enough bits and adequate sampling, the digital version is as faithful as the continuous original. And what's more, it can be copied, transmitted, stored, and processed without degradation. Digital is no worse than analog. It is better. In every way that matters to engineering, when I look at the world today, I see this idea everywhere. The CD replaced vinyl. DVD replaced VHS tape. Streaming has replaced DVD. Digital photography replaced film. The email replaced the letter. Digital telephony replaced analog. In each case, the same transition, from continuous to discrete, from analog to digital, from degradation to preservation, from vulnerability to control. And in each case, the quality improved. Convenience has increased. The cost has decreased. Access has become democratized. Think about what this meant for humanity. In the analog era, information was physical. A book was information trapped on paper. A photo was information trapped on film. A song was information stuck on vinyl or magnetic tape. Copying was difficult. Broadcasting was expensive. Storing required space. And each copy, each transmission, each storage degraded the information. The book was yellowing. The photo faded. The tape demagnetized. The information was deadly. It had an expiration date. It grew old and died along with the environment that carried it. In the digital age, information has become free from the medium. A bit is a bit, no matter if it's on a hard drive, in flash memory, in a fiber optic cable, in a radio wave. The same information can jump from medium to medium without losing anything. It can be copied 1 billion times, and the billionth copy is identical to the first. It can travel from Earth to Mars and arrive intact. It can be stored for centuries, as long as someone takes the trouble to recopy it onto new media before the old ones fail. Digital information is, in principle, immortal. Not because the medium is immortal. Disks fail, servers break, cables break. But information can be regenerated, recopied, retransmitted, without loss. Mortality is in the middle. Immortality comes from information. None of this would be possible without the fundamental realization that information can be represented as bits. That anything that can be communicated, voice, music, image, video, text, data, can be turned into a sequence of zeros and ones. And that this sequence can be manipulated, protected, optimized, and transmitted with the tools of information theory. I didn't invent the CD or the internet, but I created the mathematical foundation without which none of them could exist. And I anticipated something more, something that took decades to materialize. I anticipated that information would become civilization's most valuable resource. In the 1940s, the valuable resource was matter, steel, oils, coal, gold. Wealth was measured in tons of material. Power was measured in barrels of oil and nuclear warheads. The information was secondary, a means to coordinate material production, a tool, not an end. But the theory I built treated information as something fundamental, something measurable, something with universal properties. something that obeyed laws as rigorous as the laws of physics, and by doing so, by elevating information to the category of fundamental greatness, I was unintentionally pointing to a future where information would be more valuable than any raw material, where the economy would revolve around data, not steel, where the most valuable companies in the world would be those that collect, process, transmit, and store information, not those that extract ores or refine oil. Today, the 5 most valuable companies on the planet are information companies, not oil, not mining, not manufacturing. Of information, they sell bits, not atoms. Their products are not things you can hold. These are services that process, transmit, and store information. Search, communication, entertainment, social networks, cloud computing, everything digital, everything made of bits. And the entire infrastructure they operate on, every server, every fiber optic cable, every data center consuming the power of a small town, every algorithm optimized to extract patterns from mountains of data, every communications protocol that ensures its packets arrive intact is governed by the laws I discovered. The information economy is not a metaphor. It is a direct consequence of information theory. When people say we live in the information age, they are unknowingly saying that we live in the Shannon age, in the era when the laws I formulated became the most relevant laws of the global economy. I also anticipated data compression. In my 1948 paper, I proved that every source of information has an entropy, a measure of the actual amount of information it produces, and that it is possible to compress the output of a source to a size that approaches this entropy without losing information. This is what every compression algorithm does. ZIP, MP3, JPEG, H.264 are all practical implementations of a principle I formulated decades before any of them existed. When you watch a streaming video, it has been compressed using algorithms that come close to the theoretical limit I calculated. When you store thousands of photos on your cell phone, they are compressed following principles I have established. Data compression is not a technological invention that came out of nowhere. It is the materialization of a theorem, and I anticipated error correction. I proved that it is possible to transmit information over noisy channels with an arbitrarily small error rate, as long as the transmission rate is below the capacity of the channel. This theorem is the reason why your cell phone works, the reason Wi-Fi works, the reason why space probes billions of kilometers away can send clear photos back to Earth, the reason all modern digital communication is trustworthy. Every error-correcting code used today, from the simplest to the most sophisticated, is an attempt to get closer to the limit that I have proven to be achievable. Engineering spent 50 years looking for codes that came close to my limit. And when it arrived in the 1990s, with the turbo codes and then the LDPC codes, the result was exactly what theory predicted. Not a decibel more, not 1 decibel less. I anticipated digital encryption. In 1949, I published Communication Theory of Secrecy Systems, where I showed that the same principles of information theory apply to communications security, that the security of a secret code can be measured in bits, that there is a condition for perfect, mathematically unbreakable secrecy, and that this condition requires that the secret key be as long as the message. This work, initially classified as secret by the American government, laid the theoretical foundations of all modern cryptography. Every time you make an online purchase, every time you access your bank on your cell phone, every time you use an HTTPS connection, security depends on principles that I have formulated. Cryptography didn't come out of nowhere. It arose from information theory. And I anticipated, in a way that few recognize, artificial intelligence. In 1950, I published an article about how to program a computer to play chess. It wasn't just an exercise in entertainment. It was a serious exploration of how machines can make decisions in complex environments, how to evaluate positions, how to search among millions of possibilities, how to prune useless paths, how to create strategies. I defined two types of approaches: Strategy A, which examined all possibilities, and Strategy B, which used heuristics to focus on the most promising plays. 47 years later, when IBM's Deep Blue defeated Garry Kasparov in 1997, he used a combination of the two strategies I had described. The conceptual architecture that I proposed in 1950 was there, at the heart of the machine that defeated the greatest chess player in history. But I didn't stop at chess. I built a machine that learned to navigate mazes. I named her Theseus, after the Greek hero who faced the Minotaur. It was a mechanical mouse that explored a maze and, after finding the way, remembered the solution. A machine that learned from experience. In 1950, decades before anyone talked about machine learning, decades before neural networks became practical, decades before the term artificial intelligence gained the meaning it has today. And at the base of all this, at the base of modern AI, is information. The language models that exist today, the ones that talk to you, that write texts, that generate images, are in essence information processing machines. Machines that learn statistical patterns in colossal amounts of data. Data measured in bits, processed under information laws, transmitted over networks governed by channel capacity, stored on servers whose operation depends on error-correcting codes. Each layer of modern artificial intelligence builds on the foundation I built. Not because I specifically envisioned ChatGPT, but because I discovered the fundamental laws that govern any system that processes information. And AI is, above all, a system that processes information. There is something profoundly strange about anticipating the future. You don't know you're doing it. At the moment, it seems like it is solving a present problem, a specific, limited, technical problem. I was at Bell Labs thinking about telephones, on how to improve voice transmission over copper wires, in how to send more telegrams per minute. Worldly problems, engineering problems, problems of the 1940s. I wasn't thinking about smartphones. I wasn't thinking about video streaming. I wasn't thinking about social media or artificial intelligence or cloud computing or cryptocurrencies. I was thinking about wires and signals and noise, how a phone call could be clearer, how a telegraph could be faster. That was it. The horizon seemed small, but the ground where I was digging was deep, deeper than I imagined. But when you discover something truly fundamental, something that touches the fabric of reality, applications slip out of your control. They multiply, they branch out, they appear in places you never imagined. Because the fundamental does not belong to one era. It belongs to all eras. Newton's gravity wasn't about apples. It was about everything that has mass. Einstein's theory of relativity wasn't about trains. It was about the structure of space-time. And information theory wasn't about phones. It was about everything that can be communicated, processed, stored, or measured. That is, everything. When I see the world today, I see my theory around every corner. In each pocket with a cell phone, in every home with Wi-Fi, in every car with GPS, in each hospital with digital equipment, on every plane with communication systems, on every satellite orbiting the Earth, in every fiber optic cable on the ocean floor, in every banking transaction, in every instant message, in every video watched, in every photo shared, in each audio note sent, in every video call with someone on the other side of the planet, in every medical diagnosis made by artificial intelligence, in every autonomous car that processes billions of bits per second so as not to hit anything. Information theory is not an isolated academic discipline. It is the invisible infrastructure of the modern world. It is the foundation on which everything is built. And like any good foundation, no one sees it. Nobody thinks about her. Nobody knows it's there. But take away the foundation, and everything falls apart. And the most surprising thing is that it's not over yet. The theory continues to generate new applications. Quantum computing is being built on principles of quantum information theory, an extension of my theory into the quantum domain. Computational biology uses entropy and information theory to analyze genomes, proteins, cellular networks. Neuroscience uses bits to measure the brain's processing capacity. Cosmology uses informational boundaries to understand black holes and the structure of the universe. Each decade brings new applications, new fields, new uses that I could not have predicted. In 1937, I connected logic and circuits and created the basis of digital computing. In 1948, I connected information and mathematics and created the basis of all digital communication. In 1949, I connected information and secrecy and created the basis of modern cryptography. In 1950, I connected machines and learning and planted the seed of artificial intelligence. 4 jobs in 13 years. 4 pillars on which the entire digital world was built. Not 4 pillars among many, 4 fundamental pillars. Without any of them, the building would not stand. I didn't predict everything. Nobody predicts everything. But I figured out the rules of the game before the game started. I discovered the laws before the technologies that would obey them existed. And when the technologies finally arrived, decades later, they fit perfectly into the laws. As if the digital world was waiting to be built and just needed someone to draw the blueprints first. I drew the plan. The world built the building. And the building is still growing. Each new floor that is added, each new technology that appears, obeys the same laws, follows the same plan, respects the same limits. And it fits into the same structure that I drew at that table at Bell Labs, with pen and paper, thinking about phones, without knowing that I was drawing the entire future. He predicted everything, not because I saw the future, but because he understood the present deeply enough that the future was inevitable.